10x your service design offering with Smapply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smapply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smapply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hello and welcome to another episode of This Is HCD. My name is Gerry Scullion and I'm a human-centred design practitioner based in Sydney, Australia. Before we jump in, however, as this podcast is recorded in the Sydney CBD, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation as the traditional custodians of the land where we meet today and pay our respect to their elders, both past and present. In this episode, we caught up with Philippe, who is GM of Service Design at Telstra, Australia's largest telco. In this episode, we asked the big questions about human-centred design in large organisations, why design teams alone are not enough to become customer-led, and why we need to look at a sustainable way to scale human-centred design in organisations. Thanks to the guys at More Than Metrics, who have given us another €40 voucher for our community. More Than Metrics own MrThinker.com, an online store for service designers and design thinkers. The keyword to send in is persona. So the links and contact details to be in with a chance to win that are in the show notes. So let's jump straight in. Today in the podcast we have Philippe, who's the GM of Customer Experience Design from Telstra in Australia. It's one of Australia's largest telco, or is it the largest telco, Jenny?
It is.
It is the largest telco. And also joining Jenny on the show today, we've got Scott Howard, who's the Customer Experience Design Director from QBE. I'm delighted to have you both on the show.
Thanks for having us, Gerry.
No worries. So Jenny, let's kick off. Tell us a little bit about your involvement at human-centred design and your role at Telstra.
Sure. So I've been at Telstra for a couple of years and had different roles that have evolved around always human-centred design. But most recently, I have a team who is looking after service design activities, cross-channels and cross-products, so quite agnostic of any particular area, but just looking at the customer themselves. I also have a part of the team looking at building human-centred design capability as a skill and a mindset and a culture for the organisation. And then a third group looking at embedding testing and evaluation throughout the entire life cycle of a product or service development to ensure that we're bringing that objective point of view and the customer in as much as we can.
All right, excellent. Scott?
Yeah, so I basically look after the customer experience team, but the focus is human-centred design. And there's a real intent around that to really bring the customer to the centre. But what we do is basically what Jenny's team does, maybe a little less evolved and mature, but we have service designers, business designers, researchers and so on, and we do from strategy through to end-to-end delivery, and we figure out where we do that across the business, where the maturity and the readiness is there and where we can help.
So today we're going to discuss why customer experience teams is not enough to become customer-led and why we need to look at a sustainable way to scale human-centred design in organisations. So looking at organisations and also referring back to Jared Spool's the UX tipping point, which I recently saw, what does the organisational behaviours look like for that don't have any human-centred design activities going on at the moment?
I'd say what I've observed in my career is that companies are very focused on metrics and business-driven outcome and financials. And where HCD is not mature, it's really difficult because you don't always have metrics in the beginning to demonstrate what HCD can bring. And it kind of shuts the door quite often. So behaviours around that are quite challenging because it's like, well, prove it to me. And until you've actually given the space and the time to prove it by just going through the process and showing how different it is, then it kind of turns in circle a little bit. Yeah. So that's some of the behaviours I'm observing. It's kind of not letting go of certainty around what we already know and how we like to operate.
So what can organisations do, Scott, like to move those organisations forward? What can we do as designers?
Well, I think there's one step just beyond what Jenny mentioned, which is some organisations think they're thinking about the customer, but actually they're just thinking about themselves as if they're a customer. So I think the first piece is to actually put them in the customer's shoes, and we talk a lot about walk in their shoes or see the world through their eyes. So a lot of that is the change and awareness piece first before you can get towards that permission to play, to actually get involved in their part of the business and actually start doing design.
So what kind of activities work well at that level when you're trying to demonstrate the benefits of human-centred design in this?
Sometimes shock tactics. So sometimes pulling out those real customer stories, taking those metrics that Jenny mentioned, instead of a percentage, what's the real number? How many real people are actually experiencing this, whether it's retention or pain points or whatever. Making it real however you can, so we can use our design skills there with visual design, storytelling, role play, whatever it takes, but it's got to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. What about you, Jenny, at Telstra? Is there any tactics that you used to try to get the stakeholders involved?
Yeah, we have lots of opportunities now that are offered to anyone in the business, and also most particularly for leaders. And at the moment, we have this amazing program that one of my colleagues is driving around customer complaint immersion. And any C-level type of person is taken through a whole experience and actually engaging with a real customer issue, talking to them, obviously not saying that they're a leader or anything, and just having to experience with the customer what's going on and helping them resolve the problem. And having that first-hand experience with them is really confronting and very eye-opening, and I can see on the floor after that time spent with the customer, them following up personally, calling back, making sure everything's working, and also taking actions in terms of changing what's not working well in the organisation, challenging the processes that we have or the policies that we've put in place for probably no reason, or that kind of outdated now.
Yeah, okay. So just looking at organisations that are not mature from a design perspective, what does a high-functioning human-centred design-less large organisation look like?
From my perspective, it is embedded across every level of the organisation. It starts really with the mindset. So from the leadership and all the way down to, it's how people think about the customer and the real empathy that they would have for them and for their employee. And some really great places where you can see that coming out very specifically. Disney is a really good example where everyone is a cast member. It's all about the customer experience. There's policies and processes in place, but then it's really empowering individuals to make the right decision when it needs to be made. And it's observing what the customer is doing and really getting into their reality. And I see where it's high functioning is really in every role, but it's not just the talk, it's also the doing, and it's enabling people to try it out and trusting that they'll make the right decision. That level of trust is quite critical, I think.
So going back to the topic of human-centered design at scale, in your experience, was educating the board or the stakeholders the first step, or is it take more like the Atlassian model of trying to get the core people who are going to use your product more upskilled?
I think it's both. I don't think it can be successful if it's one or the other. So there's definitely a ground-up movement I can observe in some organisation, and certainly at Telstra, where there's a lot of people now really embracing the techniques and the mindset. But then there's also a very strong leadership support is required for that, and it's that deep understanding of what that means from a leadership point of view. It's not about teaching your CEO how to do customer research or ethnographic research or this stuff. That's not relevant. It's more the mindset and the leadership attribute that enable design and that bring in the customer and humans, really. More than customers, it's also about that empathy for your people. And if you make those two things happen concurrently, then you get something quite amazing.
So do you bring the stakeholders and the people who are doing the work together onto projects, actual live projects? Is that...
That's a way you could do that. I think it will depend on the culture of the current culture of the organisation. Some leaders would need to be taken to quite a flashy, trendy place like Stanford and really be immersed in those prestigious environment to really
D-school type stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. But then also taking them through the real life of customers, embedding them into testing sessions in the other side of the mirror, seeing what's going on. That's kind of the combination of both. It's like the theoretical and feeling that you've got this on your resume now and you can talk about it, but then
design
also
thinking and design doing.
Exactly.
There's two different words. Well, what about you, Scott, at QBE? What's worked?
I think there's a piece around, it's one thing to sort of, let's say, allow design and designers into the organisation. There's another one to fully embrace it, so to really get it and have that penny drop. So what has actually worked for us, one example is we do human-centred design sort of crash course training as an awareness campaign, if you like. But we get our most senior leaders involved in that too. And it's a cookie cut course, if you like, that's an abstract product, nothing to do with insurance or QBE. But it does show that process, and there's a few key points that we make through that, so hopefully the penny does drop. That this is a methodology that can add value and solve a different kind of problem in a very different way that's quite different to what QBE has done before. So
looking at the training at a granular level, the training that you provide to the stakeholders is obviously going to have to be a bit different to the training you provide to the people who are the doers. What's the goals for the stakeholders versus the doers? What have you noticed?
So for us, for the stakeholders, it's about awareness and acceptance, if you like. And we cap that process with the mantra that a first aid course doesn't make you a doctor. So you've got a few tools and you might know what to do, and it might save your life one day. But you also know when to call us when you need some experts and you really need to dive deep.
Yeah.
But it's a very tricky balance, and I think it's unique to every organisation what's actually right.
Yeah, because I've seen in certain organisations, and I know in government in particular, I'm thinking of this scenario, where the people on the floor go and do some design training, and then they come back with their piece of paper, and then they sit down and they're all excited and they're buzzed. But two things, it kind of makes the role of the actual designer more difficult, but also then potentially doesn't serve the organisation any better because they just go back into their old behavioural ways of working.
Yeah.
So how do you avoid that happening?
Well, we're looking to evolve what we're doing on that front to offer a mentoring model. So we do the training, but then we do check-ins and a little bit of mentoring. It sort of helps us scale a little bit too, so it helps us extend our capabilities so others can do, to some extent, human-centred design, or at least be more human-centred in what they do. We're not measuring it at the moment, but anecdotally, of the people who come through that course and then really using the tools that we've given them, because there's still some confidence to build as well. So people do get stuck, and everyone's human.
Yeah. Jenny, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, look, on that, we've had a few test and learn opportunities, and we definitely at some point we're in the training space only, and that doesn't work. You can equip someone for a day, and then, as you said, there's either the belief that they know it all and they can do it, or the actual inability to do anything with it, because then they go back into an environment and a system, as not a technology, but a system that stops them from doing anything they've learned. And then there's that frustration that might come across with that belief that actually I've been exposed to all this fun stuff. I really want to do it. I don't think I can do this here. And then you might lose a great champion.
Yeah.
So it's really a combination of training and to Scott's point, mentorship, coaching, on-the-job experience, which takes effort. So you do need to have a dedicated team coming in projects with those guys to give them support so they don't feel that it's all on them.
Yeah.
But then also in parallel, there's a lot of other work that needs to happen in the organisation from a HR point of view, looking at KPIs, job description when we hire people, so we bring in that skill set first in next time. There's also all these systemic issues that need to be addressed, and that's where leadership is critical. So through awareness around HCD, we also need to bring awareness around the flows of the system that the leadership is supporting. That hierarchical approach doesn't work. Empowerment, empathy, fail fast, all this stuff needs to change. But you need to change your capital planning process. You need to change your resourcing approach. You need to change your structure and your operating model.
It's everything.
It's a lot of things that need to happen for it to be successful.
And especially at the size of the organisations that both of you guys are working at, if you were to set up something like an innovation lab, as I've heard that terminology being used quite a lot in Australia, by the time you get people through that innovation lab once, you guys got tens of thousands of people working for you. It's almost like the guy who's painting the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. When he finishes at one end, he has to go back to the other end and start painting again. So how do you ensure that that's not the case, that they're constantly learning when they go back to their desks, so to speak?
So what we found actually, interestingly, is that there's a lot more human-centered design people across the organisation than the org structure might say, or there's that central customer experience team there. But then
you've got Mark here.
We've got Mark here. We've got literally probably hundreds of people that have skills and capability in that space. Yeah. It's really about how do you build that champion network and align language framework, because we all have our own ways of working in our pockets of the business, and we're going through that activity at the moment. It's so interesting because we're not hung up onto certain things. We all want the same outcome, so it's bringing those forces together. So then whoever goes through training and coaching has buddies around the business. It's not all down to that central function. It's kind of useless if we just look at it that way. So it's building that network and letting success stories create. So then leadership wants more, and they hear about something amazing that's been done in that area. It's like, oh, I want to do this too. Yeah. And that kind of builds up.
That groundswell.
There's another slant on that too, which you haven't quite touched on, which is you need to train some of the people in the business to be designers who have experience within the organisation and have the networks and connections, and obviously the aptitudes to be a fully fledged designer. But we're finding that's really important at QBE. We can't just hire externally and bring in designers. It just won't work.
For the knowledge, is it? Subject matter expert knowledge?
Knowledge, yes, but also the networks and understanding, because it's a very relationship-driven organisation, as most are.
Yeah.
To be able to affect an outcome, if you like, we need people who have experience in the business as well as experience in human-centred design, and ideally we want both. But we're quite conscious of that mix. So that is one time when, yes, we do actually need to train non-designers who have the aptitudes to be human-centred designers to enable those design outcomes.
'Cause that's really interesting, because my next question was about the evolvement of human-centred design, moving from that sort of ground zero place, and as the maturity increases. Have you seen the role of the designer, like, can I say designer, like UX designer, service designer, I'm using those roles interchangeably. How has that changed on a day-to-day basis? What do they have to do differently?
One thing we've seen from when we started was, came in expecting we'd be able to line up design projects and do them. What we're finding is we need a lot more strategy. Although I don't really like the term strategic designer, we kind of all have to be able to end up in the position where we can do successful projects, and a lot more change. So a lot of it is about the change journey, inspiration, and whatever words you want to use. As a sustainable team, we need that capability almost more than service design. We can even potentially outsource that and bring others in. But if we haven't set the scene and got the permission to play, doing the actual design is a bit useless.
Yeah.
And beyond that, I would say we need to know where it's going to be impactful. So we could do a great app for a particular product line. Might be a really fun project that I'd love to do myself, but the impact on the business might be really minimal, and that could actually be detrimental to the case, if you like, for design.
It's a prioritisation of ideas and desirability, feasibility, viability type stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. But kind of before you start playing in a certain space, you've got to pick your space to play, and we're not nearly as complex as Telstra, but both are complex businesses with distribution channels and lots of products and so on.
So how many designers are in both your teams, like overall, like in the organisation, how many designers do we have?
So we have a digital team as well as a CX team, but we have less than 10 designers in an organisation of actually globally over 14,000.
Wow, okay. So what about you, Jenny? Is there big teams?
So in the customer experience design team, there's less than 10 people.
Yeah.
And then there's groups of designers across the business, and then also people with customer experience title everywhere. There's a massive area also called Telstra Digital. There's lots of UX designers as well.
A lot of people there,
So there's, probably hundreds, but not operating under one prioritization activity. So everyone, as you said, Scott, I couldn't echo more all the stuff you said before. It's about that coordination and the strategic vision. So also bringing those strategy roles, corporate strategy, channel strategy, product strategy, that again is so many roles across the business, and then per line of business, they're all doing their own thing. We need that human-centered design approach into strategy. That's where we start.
Yeah.
And then we build that common vision across the board, and everyone can bring it to life and execute it in their own environment, but there's that sense of bringing it together.
Yeah. So to get the vision across, and we discussed a little bit about the role of the designer changing depending on the maturity of the organisation. So if an organisation wants to become more design-centric or human-centred, design-focused, why not just hire more designers?
First of all, there's probably not enough designers on the market in Australia, for sure, even if you outsource it and bring it from all around the world. But then also you need that combination. I think Scott touched on that before. You need combination of skills, and it's not pure designers that you need, it's people with the right mindset and some of those tools and activities that you do in human-centered design. But you also need the business acumen, you also need agile, you need lean startup, you need so many other skills that come together. It's that cross-functional diversity being brought together that makes the business more successful, because we think outside of the box and we don't take things for granted. And having just designers won't cut it. So it's really evolving existing roles, embedding design in it, but also embedding agile and embedding other techniques that all together start from the strategy to designing it to delivering. That's what you need, and that change is massive as well. So it is So change capability is incredible. It's
Yeah.
the ability to deal with uncertainty and constantly challenge how you work and how you think, and being able to do that. It's almost not a capability. It's a core thing in people's DNA.
Yeah.
It's really hard to recruit for.
So, see, I sort of echo that in that a designer isn't a designer. You can't just go out and get eight. There's no two designers that are the same, that have the same background. We as an organisation have struggled with that when we're used to hiring underwriters and so on and so forth, where there's a far more logical career path to try and pick the right designer. First and foremost, there aren't many of those in the market. So for us, it's like a startup, but within a big organisation. So you kind of need to be comfortable in both. It's very greenfield. We don't know how this is going to work. A designer is a maker, fundamentally, in my opinion, anyway. But hey, you might not be able to do any making for maybe a year. You have to lay all the groundwork, so you've got to be up for that.
Yeah.
So this narrows the pool massively. So that's one reason you can't just hire more designers.
Yeah.
But the other is you need, and I'm saying it a lot lately, permission to play. So not just, okay, fine, we'll do human-centered design, and yes, you can come and work in my part of the business, but I get it, and I really want you guys to mess with my business and tell me as experts what we should do. But there's a really big piece too, I think, around if you're doing design properly, there are multiple points where you don't know what the answer's going to be. And that's really uncomfortable. And the way we probably all deal with that is through experience. I can remember the first few times of that, and I've seen it in some of the newer designers where it's scary. And the way you get through it is based on experience and trusting a process, as cheesy as that might sound.
Yeah.
But to scale that in an organisation, we don't know the answer.
Yeah.
That's really tough.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's really nailing that.
Yeah, and it's also the experience to be able to say, I don't know. And it's taken me a long time to be able to kind of go, look, I don't know what to do here. You know, I need help. That's been the biggest thing. And even me saying this now, I'm kind of going, oh my God, it's still a hard thing, because for a long time you had to put on that facade of saying, I know everything, I can fix everything. But in organisations, it's going back to Jenny's point about the stakeholders, making them feel comfortable enough to hear that. Like, if a stakeholder hears that the person doesn't know what they're doing, that doesn't show lack of confidence, it shows more confidence, in my opinion.
Whether you're external or internal, you got to sell that. So how do you sell design if you don't know the answer?
Yeah.
Written off in the first conversation. So it's a very tricky line to walk when you know there's value add there. For us, and we've stuck to, let's show that it is a methodical process. We've actually found other functions within the business have recognised we're in some ways more methodical than they are, because we have to be. We have to demonstrate consistency and method. And as the value comes out, as the pennies start to drop. But it's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
And we can see in the organisation the struggle between other ways to solve a problem. So if you look at short-term tactical approaches, such as Lean Six Sigma, for instance, where we're demonstrating value straight away. You're cutting out stuff out of the business, you're cutting stuff out of processes, you're reorganising things, and right in the moment, in the next months, you're seeing changes in numbers. Where in the meantime, you have this human-centered design team working on strategic thinking around, hang on, let's not even design anything yet. Let's just make a strategy around who are our customers, how are we going to win with them, what's the value prop. It takes time, and everyone's in that short-term mindset. And you're competing with people in the short term making wins that are tactical but not changing the environment on the longer term. So you have to have that two-speed economy in your own team where you're building the future and you're dedicating people to that, because if no one does it, we're going nowhere. But also having a support team in the short term, picking up those, as Scott was saying, this app that you want to build or this great project that sounds really shiny. It's not going to produce that massive transformation for the organisation, but it's going to build a small story to keep momentum and keep people patient that they need to trust that process.
That little pocket of success.
Exactly, and that's what we're trying to kind of shift now, because a lot of our team, we're not doing design per se at this stage. There's so many other things need to happen before, and building capability is one of them. There's no point of us all being busy delivering 3 projects a year with 10 people. How much of a difference would we make?
Would you make? Yeah, absolutely. The bit that I've found works quite nicely in that early stage of trying to build that momentum for human-centered design is quantifying its success elsewhere. And the service design, Birgit Megler in Austria, Germany, she's quantified like for every pound you spend on design, it's £26 back. And that's the metric that I keep on going back to, and I refer, and I've started to keep a repository of knowledge to share depending on conversations that I have with senior C-level or board people to be able to share afterwards, to put their mind at ease.
Yeah. Can I build on that? There's actually in the team, we've looked at ways also to start measuring things, and we've had that function I was talking about before, which is about testing and evaluating experiences throughout the life cycle. And the team looking after that has done an amazing job around quantifying over the last year, it's 3-4 years, how many projects they've tested pre-launch, how many critical business issues, how many critical usability issues they've identified, and then measured the amount of money you need to spend to rework on some of these. It's quite incredible. And having just those numbers show the case that all of these projects, had they not been tested with customers, would have gone to the market with all those issues.
That's excellent. Yeah,
so that's another way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a really nice model to build confidence. You were going to say something there, Scott?
I was going to say, we've got similar to you, we've got a repository of case studies of different flavours depending on the stakeholder group that we're talking to. All about human-centred design and being human-centred, but if it's very much a cost and profit outcome we need to demonstrate, there's an example from fridge manufacturing in China and getting ethnographic insights, and there's a real point to it at the end that the differentiating feature of that fridge is a 20-cent piece of plastic, but if it wasn't there, they wouldn't be different to any other fridge. And then a whole bunch of others that some are more around the emotion and so on, depending on the group that we're talking to, and we're constantly building on those.
Yeah, okay, nice.
That's amazing.
Nice. So we're nearly at the end of our podcast here, and I'm going to shoot over to Mark, who's going to ask the new segment, Mark's 3 dreaded questions from hell, as we're referring to it internally. Mark, over to you.
Jenny, these are for you. I guess it's 3 questions. The first one is, I guess, what professional skill do you wish that you were better at?
I think for me it's about storytelling. This is coming all the time in everything that we do. It's about how do you tell the story with those metrics, with whatever talks to your audience. And because you strongly believe in what you do, you don't always do the job around going around the organisation selling stuff, selling all the beauty of what your team could do or what your skill set could do. So it's about that. Storytelling is critical. All right. To get better at that.
Question number 2 is what one thing in the industry do you wish you were able to banish?
So we're talking HCD industry or industry in general, like business?
Industry in general, I think.
I'd say that whole power, this is my patch and you need to go by my rules. Can we just let people do their stuff? Just give them permission and you'd get amazing results.
Nice.
So look at it not from an ownership perspective rather than what's the best outcome.
Yeah, okay. Community. I'm sounding communist here.
And what's the one message, I guess, that you give to an emerging HCD talent for the future?
I'd say it's about going for things and not waiting around to get given an opportunity. There's so many great opportunities out there and you just go and ask, and not focusing on building your experience only. It's like, if you don't know, that's okay. You go, you give your time and your passion, and people will give you a chance.
Just do it. That's a recurring theme for this question. But
we need you guys. Just come and work. Ditch uni. Just come.
Oh, big call. Ditch uni. Okay, so guys, listen, thank you both so much for coming on the podcast today. Jenny, Philippe, if anyone wants to get in touch with you about roles, is that something you want to maybe call
that's
out?
A really nice opportunity. We are recruiting for senior service designer at the moment. The team will definitely grow in the future as well, so come and join us and change the world. You can hit Jenny up on the Slack channel as well. This is HCD Slack channel. Jenny's on there. And Scott, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything you wanted to add at QBE? Maybe a shout out for jobs or anything at the moment?
At the moment, we're still trying to get that permission to play. So
that's okay. That's all right.
But I'm always happy to chat about HCD with anyone who wants to reach out to me. Yeah. Absolutely.
And Scott's on the channel as well. This is HCD. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you'd like to be part of the conversation or community, hop on over to thisishcd.com, where you can request to join the Slack community and help shape future episodes and connect with other designers from around the world. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.